Hello everyone, you're watching the news here on Press TV. A warm welcome from me, Hassan Tavikoli.
I'm Kitty Satma. Many thanks for joining us. Iran's Guardian Council, the body in charge of supervising elections, has rejected the annulment of the country's recent presidential vote, saying there have been no irregularities, major that is, during the vote.
خوشبختانه در انتخابات ریاست جمهوری اخیر ما هیچ گونه شاهدی بر
Fortunately, we have witnessed no major irregularities during the country's recent presidential election, and therefore there is no reason to annul the election.
در واقع ابطال انتخابات اینها هم دیگه وجود نداره.
The council spokesman Abbas Ali Khatkodai also said most of the complaints they have received are about irregularities before the election and not during or after the vote. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was declared as the winner of the June the 12th election with almost two-thirds of the vote. The defeated candidates Mir Hussein Mousavi and Mahdi Karoubi and Mohsen Rezai earlier reported more than 600 irregularities in the electoral process and submitted it to the Guardian Council. The Council agreed with a partial recount of the ballots, but the move was rejected by Mousavi and Karoubi. They're calling for the annulment of the polls.
Well, calm in Tehran for a second day. Heavy security presence on the streets of the Iranian capital has prevented new election-related rallies. Protesters had earlier announced they would gather in Tehran's Ferdowsi Square. But PressTV reporters say the protests didn't take place. Meanwhile, some 200 protesters who had gathered in Haftatia Square dispersed following the arrival of security forces in the area. 400 more protesters gathered on the other side of the square. They were also dispersed. Planned Azadi Square demonstrations were also cancelled. Foreign media have reported clashes between over 1,000 protesters and the police. However, security forces told Press TV that the protesters were dispersed peacefully. Our reporter says several protesters have been arrested.
Iran's Islamic Revolution Guards Corps has vowed to crack down on any new street riots. The IRGC said in a statement that its guards, the Basijis and security forces will crush the rioters. It hailed the Iranian presidential election as an epic that disappointed the enemies. The statement praised the remarks of the leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution as enlightening. It also denounced the attempts of some Western media to fuel violence across the country and called such attempts blatant interference in Iran's internal affairs.
Iranian security officials say they're probing the deadly incidents during Saturday's street protests in Tehran. Deputy Police Chief Ahmad Reza Radan says the police have not shot or killed any protester during illegal rallies. He says police have started investigating the killings. Also, the Office of Tehran's Prosecutor General, says it has launched a probe. It says an armed terrorist has been arrested. Officials say elements involved in the violence will soon be brought to justice. Saturday's post-election riots claimed at least 13 lives in the capital. The government says the casualties occurred after terrorists infiltrated the rallies. Armed terrorists set fire to a mosque and 2 gas stations and attacked a military base. Hundreds of people have reportedly been arrested.
Iran's foreign ministry has once again slammed Western governments for their meddling in the country's internal affairs. The foreign ministry spokesman specifically lashed out at Britain and France for their comments regarding the presidential elections in Iran. At a press briefing in Tehran, Hassan Qashqavi said the Iranian constitution has a big capacity for resolving internal affairs through democratic channels. Qashqavi also condemned the West's media war, that is, as well as the recent cyber attacks against Iranian official websites and news agencies.
Diplomatic tensions between London and Tehran are showing no signs of abating after Iran's foreign minister accused Britain of stirring election protests, saying the UK has plotted against the presidential election for 2 years. In response to the accusations, British Foreign Secretary David Miliband suggested that Tehran is seeking to distract attention from its internal difficulties. Press TV's Roshan Mohammed Saleh reports.
UK-Iran relations seem to be at an all-time low. Iran has accused Britain of meddling in its internal affairs by trying to whip up anti-government feeling inside the country. Ambassadors to both nations have been summoned to explain the other side's actions. The The Iranians have expressed outrage at the comments by the British Foreign Secretary and Prime Minister expressing doubts about the Iran election result. They're also concerned that the British media is whipping up anti-government frenzy inside the country. And they're worried that Britain has given a base to the MKO terrorist organisation, which Iran says is responsible for some of the violence seen on the streets of Tehran. The British have also admitted freezing around $1.6 billion worth of Iranian assets since sanctions were imposed on Iran in 2006 over its disputed nuclear program. A combination of factors which has led Iran's supreme leader to call Britain evil.
There may be a possibility that Britain plays a proxy position now in terms of US-Iranian relations and interferes on behalf of the US. And this is apparent also in that the MKO organization was taken off the terrorist list in Britain, but it wasn't taken off in the United States. And last year, in June 2008, the US Congress authorized $400 million for, I quote, covert operations to undermine the Iranian government. The question is, where is all this money going?
British media reporting is perhaps causing Iran the greatest concern. Many feel the BBC, which says it's impartial, is distorting the reality of what's happening in the country.
I mean, if we saw something happen like that here, where people were smashing up police cars, people were trying to break into military bases, which is what's happening in Iran, there would be outrage. Yet in Iran, it's almost seemed like they're being framed as freedom fighters. So we'd like to have a bit more objectivity as well.
The UK denies its meddling in Iranian affairs and says it doesn't want to repeat previous mistakes. And it insists the British media is independent of government and is simply reporting the facts.
The whole of the world is speaking out. They are not asking the Iranian people that other countries should choose whom they elect. They wish to protect the right of the Iranian people to elect those whom they wish to select. And it is for Iran now to show the world that the elections have been fair.
The British say they're monitoring events in Iran very closely. And for now, the war of words and deeds shows no sign of abating. Roshan Mohammed Saleh, PressTV, London.
Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Muallim has advised European countries not to interfere in Iran's internal affairs. Muallim says European states meddling in Iran's affairs might impact a possible dialogue between Iran and the United States after 3 decades of cold relations. Muallim made the remarks at a joint press conference with the Netherlands visiting Foreign Minister Maxime Verhagen. Verhagen criticized the Iranian government for what he called excessive use of violence against protesters in Tehran. He said the voice of the Iranians should be heard. Verhagen also called for a transparent probe into a possible ballot rigging.